2 p.m. And I normally do my lives doing karaoke recently, but today I've done a few shorts on some serious matters, just things that are going on in my head. As we all know, mental health is very important. Um, Life is very important. And although some things may come out of my mouth because they're deep within my heart or my mind or my emotions. And so, with that being said, listen with discretion and, if it doesn't apply to you, don't take it personally. Um, if for any reason you feel it does, and and it does apply to you, well, I mean, I guess that's just the way life goes. There's a lot of things that are said, there's a lot of things that get misconstrued, there's a lot of things that get covered up, brushed under the rug, hushed, for maybe people's safety, maybe people's respect, maybe people's lives. And I'm going to do the best that I can to keep certain things private for the respect of individuals that I have had encounters with, or situationships, or any certain names most likely will not be said. Um, they might have already been said throughout my social media. I mean, I have social media trails. There's plenty of information out there that has been, again, misconstrued, taken in different context, exaggerated, has caused me a lot of, in the past, a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, a lot of hurt, a lot of disrespect, a lot of different emotions, a lot of mental disorder. And I have done a lot of work on myself. I've done a lot of work within my heart. I've done a lot of work within my mind, within my body, within my health, to be where I am today. Um, Again, I am, today I have 318 days sober. I am very proud of myself. I have come this far with work that I've done within myself. Um, I've completed an outpatient program. I've, in this amount of time of 318 days, hi, I've I've come from living on the street, being in addiction. I was an injection user. Um, and I now rent a room in someone's apartment. I go to school. I'm a student going into my fourth semester of college. I've been hired on campus as a peer mentor. I've I work at a barbershop, and then I mentioned earlier that I also do outreach. So I go and I cut hair at a place where we do outreach. Again, I'm gonna, you know, do my best to just talk more about my journey and not throw so much out there of like names. Like I said, like I'm in college. I'm not like throwing out names all like that. I'm just, what I'm doing is just doing a testimony on myself, just sharing a little bit about my personal being, traumas that I've been through. Again, for those of you who are or have gone through trauma, some extreme traumas, have overcame battles that you fight within yourself, in your mind, in your spirit, in your soul, in your daily activities, in your addiction, family, I'm gonna kind of hit all those little points. It may not be all tonight, but I'm gonna do the best I can to keep content flowing. Although my brain sometimes will just go all sporadic. So again, my name is Romelia Sofia Castillo. A lot of people do know me by Romy, Romi. Hi guys, welcome. And so I'll kind of start off a little bit in the beginning. I'll start from the beginning. I mean, might as well. I'm 45. I I'm a Gemini. So I was born in Oceanside. I've grown up in Oceanside. Somewhere between the age of 2 and 4, I lived in San Diego. And when I was 4, we moved to Indio. My mom and dad got married. They moved to Indio High. We had a house. My dad worked, DJ'd. My mother worked. She was a stenographer. They're both deceased now. But when I was at the age of 9, my mother got in a truck accident. I kind of mentioned this a little earlier in one of my shorts, but I'll go ahead and go over it again. So when I was 9, it was Memorial Weekend. She forgot something, went to the store. The truck lost control. The seatbelt busted. She flew through the windshield. She landed on a rock. She died at the scene. She was resuscitated. She was in a coma and on life support. They life flighted her over here to Sharp in San Diego. And she went through physical therapy and then came home and lived 13 years as a quadriplegic with brain damage and memory loss. And through that trial, she came home back to Indio, and family issues, and my grandparents took her back to Oceanside. And then shortly, again, more family issues. So I ended up coming to Oceanside, back to Oceanside, and living with my grandparents. And so when that happened, of course, I don't know what I just pushed, but of course, being 9 years old and just going through the trauma of losing my mom in the way that I did, although she was still alive, she had no memory, so she didn't remember me another day in her life. So that was traumatizing enough. And then being that young and being very close to my father, my dad, all I wanted to do was be back with my dad, but due to family disagreements, and again, now that I'm an adult and I am also a mother of 3, I do understand the strength that I've gained by being separated from him at that time, or maybe the strength that he might have needed so that he didn't have to take care of me at the time of him going through his trauma of losing his wife, which is my mom. But so that was a little hard. Now fast forward a little bit, and I'm 16 now, and so being this conversation, this testimony, and my life story is in regards to addiction. So addiction, that's kind of when it started. This whole time my father was in and out of addiction as well, which I didn't know as a child. I didn't really focus on that. And thank you. And hi again, everybody. Thank you for being here. And so I'm sorry, I got a little lost for thought there. So So being in addiction, fast forward, I'm 16 now, and I started smoking weed. So I get caught with weed at 16, and I get caught with weed at 16, and big misunderstanding goes down, and somebody gets word. My grandfather found a letter, and finding the letter, he read what it said, and it was misinterpreted by the person. And so instead of going into more detail than it really needs to be, because it's came and it went. And again, these are situations where trauma has occurred, but going through these experiences, one becomes stronger and more respectful for different things, but also in alignment with what is true within and what one person isn't. So no matter what anybody can say about somebody, the facts are that internally and emotionally, mentally, and truthfully, a person knows who they are and who they're not. And so I ended up getting jumped at 16 for a misunderstanding. And so I get upset and I want to go back with my dad. So finally I go back with my dad, which I was very happy about that. And so I'm living back with my dad, and things are really good. Let's see, I can fast forward now a little bit to high school. I graduated high school, going through all that trauma of my mom's situation, and just being a teenager, and just kind of being lost in life at yet a young age, but yet being very mindful and spiritually understanding of things that were happening and going on. A lot of observance, a lot of when you're young, your family leaves, you know, back in my time of day, the kid isn't known any information. So when growing up in that kind of environment, we tend to not understand what's really going on in the adult life, until you become an adult, and then you have to learn on your own. But so going a little bit into that, I graduated high school. I then I got pregnant. I had my first child around 21, and my second at 24, and then my third at 26. And so in between that time, I had been married to their dad. We are now divorced. I have mad respect for him, and I have love and respect for him, for being my children's father. We did go through our ups and downs. No relationship, I'm sure, cannot be perfect, but we did go through our ups and downs. We did go through our addictions up and down. And again, I'm not going to go into his life, but mine, that's how I started using meth. So that's at the age around 24 is when I started smoking meth. And I was what I thought I was gonna do was save my marriage. And so being in addiction and being unaware of where life is gonna take you, or being in a broken space within emotionally, there was some infidelity. And not to go into disrupting my kid's father's life. There was some infidelity in that relationship, and we've now overcome all that. So, but we are great co-parents and great friends for life. And so going through through that relationship, the addiction went up and down, in and out, and it took me really to a low place in my life. And so I allowed the addiction to really take over my life. And finally, around 27, I believe, I started smoking cigarettes. And so an incident occurred, and again, addiction just kind of sneaks up on you, and you're going through, an overwhelming time, emotional breakdown, and there's something there to help you cope with it. But so addiction, it works for a while. I'm not gonna say it didn't help me get through certain things. It sure did, and I can guarantee you that the addictions that I was going through, for whatever reasons, they kept me alive at times. Um, you know, I've been on mental health medications, and being on medication and remembering to take a pill when you have a busy life, or you're going to school, or you're going to work, or whatever, it does. If you don't have a great schedule, or you're not, how would I say it? if if you're not very prompt on times and schedules, as I wasn't at all at that time. I'm a lot better today, but at being prompt and being on schedule, I'm still working on those things. Those have been a downfall of my life. But because for me, time just it just continued going. Like whatever moment I had to do what I had to do, that's what I used in that moment. So but now that I'm at a different point in my life, time and schedule and appointments and stuff are being regulated, and I'm becoming more responsible with those things. Mind you, I'm 45, so I guess it's never too late to get responsible, right? But so going back to about 29, our divorce went through, and when it went through, I started going into going out because I became single, and I went out one night, and it was fun and I enjoyed it. And so alcohol became my new addiction. And so I'm about I'm less than 150 right now. And so at that time I was in my addiction. So I had to been in high school. I graduated at 98 pounds. So I had to been no more than 115 wet. And so alcohol became my new addiction at that time. And it lasted for a long time. By the time I was 20, I want to say about 29, I went into rehab. I took myself out of town. In between that time, I did do a little bit of college. I did complete cosmetology. I've had several jobs. I have a lot of work experience, a lot of customer service experience, a lot of mental experience, like mental health experience, meaning overcoming battles, overcoming trauma, over experiencing trauma. When if you've ever been a spouse at any time, or if you've ever been a mother, then we become mental health practitioners instantly. And so not only all that, but my mom not having her memory, and having to, excuse my language, but fuck my brain to be okay with something that really wasn't okay for somebody to have to ever go through. So going back, then I went to rehab, and I was doing really good, did rehab, got housing, did lived in a shelter. Well, actually, not at that time. A little later, that came. Um, so went to rehab, relapsed, went back, um, and then finally, I got my stuff together. I did a program. I had housing, and had Section 8. Got back on my feet, was working. You know, and life hit. 2016 came around. My father got sick. My dad died of stage 4 stomach cancer, gastroparesis, vascular disease, diabetes, gangrene, Agent Orange neuropathy, a feeding tube, and a suction tube. And for anybody who's ever had to experience that, I'm sorry you've had to endure that whole experience. And at that time, I was just about to do a grand opening, which I did the grand opening. I left work, went to go take care of him. And slowly, life just depleted. But there are some good moments in that time. Unfortunately, my children had to endure a lot of trauma and a lot of, heartache, and just when you're a single parent and you're doing the best that you can, you know, the whole crew is going to go through the ups and the downs. So after my father passed, we lost two really close friends, family friends, that put a lot of damper on our family, my children. And not only that, we lost my dad's mom. Shortly after that, I didn't find out till a little later, I lost my biological grandfather. And then about 5 years from losing my dad, I lost my mom's mom, which was my grandma, who, had a big part in raising me. And so in between those losses, I was in a couple of toxic relationships. I was single for most of the time, and just the truth be told, I've dated in between that time, but I happened to be in a couple of toxic relationships. And when I say toxic, it was emotional, it was an addiction, it was, when you have overcame already a lot of disorganization in life, and the way my mind works. I've had experiences with a particular one in the past, and sometimes you just do things to find out what's really going on, I guess. And the truth surfaces most of the time. So that happened again, just very toxic, very obsessive, very unhealthy. Um, Again, I had some really good relationships, and certain individuals, like, I love to the last day of my dying breath. And some, I'm just happy that they're out of my life. Again, this time, on and off, addiction was in play, a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of brokenness, a lot of trauma. And so between those and that time of those 5 years, after losing my father, I I ended up with DUIs. My alcoholism got worse. My drug use was worse. My smoking was worse. Everything had gotten to the most extreme. And after that, I got in a relationship, which, again, just very toxicity of everything. It was sex, drugs, just unhealthy. And again, I'm not gonna point finger at that one person, but obviously, when you're in a relationship with somebody, or you're in a situationship, It stems on both ends. I'm not gonna sit here and not take fault for any of it, because it was my place, it was my fault. They were my children that I had, some of that environment around, and very unhealthy for them. But addiction is an ugly disease, or an ugly disorder. I'm not even gonna say it's a disease. Um, I've now learned that it's a huge choice. Now, I'm not gonna backpedal on the fact that some individuals are born into addiction, and so it's a lot different than not being born in from out of addiction. Um, so I'm not gonna really speak on that right now, but on my situation, I don't believe I was born in addiction, into or out of addiction. So for me, I guess it has become a choice today. It was very hard. It had been very hard in the past to to recover, and it does take a lot of work, and it does take, for me, it's taken a lot of spirituality, a lot of faith in my higher power, a lot of belief in myself, a lot of strength in in everything that hurts to not hurt anymore. But so in that relationship, remember, my kids are in my home, so an incident had occurred, and again, there's some more trauma. So I'll just be honest, and I'm gonna say this out loud. Now, for the reason that I hadn't spoke up on this is because my children were in the picture and are in the picture of my life. But I was raped by somebody I was in a relationship with, and because addiction was in place, for a long time I didn't speak up, because I didn't want anything to happen to any of my children. And one of my children overheard the incident. And so this is why I had not spoken on this. But because I'm at a place in my life that I'm tired of sweeping things under the rug. And when you have true recovery and life is on a different path of becoming something I want to become, which I'm going to school for my doctorate in mental health and sociology. And if I'm going to go for this degree, this doctorate that I'm trying to become, that I believe that I've already become, but again, everything has to do with credentials and that certificate. So that happened, and it's taken me a long time to actually say it like that. I guess I've nonchalantly have said it, or I've kind of hinted of certain things like that, or maybe put it in a message or something. But it actually happened, and one of my children overheard the incident, and so it's been very heavy on my chest, and it's been heavy in my spirit, and it was very heavy in my addiction. So throughout that time, things were starting to really fall apart. And I was evicted. That they sold, the owner had sold the condo that I was living in with Section 8, and the person that bought it didn't want to have a tenant with Section 8 any longer, so I was evicted. So eviction came, I became homeless. I Before my dad passed away, he asked me to become a doctor, and I was like, you're fucking crazy. Like, you have stomach cancer, not brain cancer. But nonetheless, I said, okay, Dad, I'll do the best. He asked me to do the best I can, and so I told him, okay, I'll do the best I can. After my mom going through her accident and all the medical attention that I put into her, and then him being sick and putting all that medical attention into him, and thank God my children weren't in and out of hospitals. But I was exhausted of doing medical work for anybody because I have had always taken care of somebody else. And so I was like, no, I want to, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to take care of anybody else. I want to take care of myself. And the way I spoke it was very selfishly, but that's how I became because I was tired. And I just told him, okay, Dad, I'll do the best I can. So I ended up becoming homeless. I was stuck with my son's dog. Um, Lost the dog out on the street through a misunderstanding. Again, I was very, very broken going out to the street. So, um, like, every emotion that could be broken was broken. My entire being was shattered. And um, it's a place that you never feel like you're going to get out of. But prior to being evicted, that's when I asked God to remove all locusts from my life. And unfortunately, but fortunately, he removed everything from my life. I lost everything. I lost, and a lot of it's just materialistic things, but a lot of them were spiritual things that were in connection to me, like for example, my dad's ashes, um my mom's ponytail from her accident, death certificates, very important information. My dad's DD-214, which if you don't know what that is, military information. A lot of my tax information, a lot of personal information, and so a lot of that got lost, and through becoming homeless. So after that, I was able to get a storage, lost that shortly, lost the dog. Um, Again, I didn't have enough energy to fight anybody for anything after losing things just left and right. And again, what I asked God for, he answered. And at the moment I just couldn't see it that way, but today I very clearly can see that that's what he did. I asked for something and he does answer. um and so I had given myself 3 years. And when I first got out there, I actually went to a recovery center and they couldn't take me for liability if I have a port, which is bullshit. And so I said, okay. I thought that recovery center would take me because I had already gone to that recovery center in the past, although I hadn't had the port yet. But, so I said, well, F your fucking programs. I'm not going to do a program and I'll show you. And so I didn't go to any other program until a lot later. And I'll get into that. But I, being on the street, it was 3 years. And I had already enrolled into college. Not the college that I'm going to, but another college. I had already enrolled. I enrolled again, and I enrolled again, and I enrolled again because my student number would cancel out. It would expire. And so I had to keep enrolling. But I kept enrolling. And so being on the street, I went from city to city. I'm originally from Oceanside, but I've been homeless in Escondido. I've been homeless in Vista. I've been homeless in Oceanside. I've been homeless in San Diego. I've actually lived in the trenches in San Diego. I feel like I was being held in the trenches by a particular somebody, and so I've overcome that. Um, Being homeless in Oceanside, and so just overcoming all these obstacles of unfortunate events. And again, God doesn't give us anything that we cannot overcome. And he sure has put me through through an obstacle course of itself. And so doing that, so enrolling, and then my 3 years was just about to hit. It was Thanksgiving, and I had been drugged and I was raped on the street. So that set me back. So I obviously didn't fight to get off the street, I ended up just diving a little bit more deeper into my addiction. Um, and again, I was an injection user. So, again, just diving deeper into my addiction, just trying to continuously numb myself. And I got into a relationship, and the relationship was really good. Um, and the good person, although I babysat him. And when you're in addiction or you know addiction at all, I used methamphetamine. A lot of individuals use fentanyl, which, if you've ever experienced somebody on fentanyl, it is not a fun experience. It's very traumatizing. I've saved his life 5 or 6 times, and not Narcan fixes it all the time. So I've used methamphetamines to save his life. And this isn't to promote methamphetamines, but it also is to not demote methamphetamine, because there has been some good outcome of that drug. Um, and later on, I'll go into that because my brain just is on wildfire all the time. But, um, doing CPR and saving a life out there, then knowing individuals that are just overdosing and dying. And so he ended up leaving, um, family request, his family request, and I was pretty much out there, um, alone. Well, alone, and I was pretty much always alone anyway. I've always pretty much rolled by myself. Um, and I never really got wrapped up in a lot of the things that go on out there. Um, I'm sure it might have, I'm not even gonna say what it might have looked like or what it might have sounded like or what it might have been like, but I know my personal self, I've not, engaged in a lot of the activity that happens out on the street. So I understand when stereotypes come around and people are um, are discriminated or disrespected or personalized or, um, what's the word, just criminalized out there. um, I've experienced all of that experience, and it is so unfortunate because there are some that are not really like that. But, you know, um, when a stereotype is put in place, then stereotype is what it is. And this is why I'm going into the career that I'm going into, because I do want to make change, and I have lived this experience, and I do know what it's like out there. Now, I can't say I know what everybody has ever experienced, but I have experienced a lot of things that a lot of people haven't. And when you are going through education to become somebody that's going to give back and help somebody else, and this is from my mouth to anybody's ears who give a shit, you better know what you're talking about when you're trying to help somebody. Because I've seen these programs where, and it's a revolving fucking door. And you guys, these facilities that I've experienced and I've seen, have benefited off of funding, benefit off of things, benefited off of people, benefit off of their ignorance, benefited off of others, in every freaking possible way. A lot of these organizations use nonprofit to profit off of, receive funding, and don't even follow through with what they're promising. And again, living that experience, living that lifestyle, I know what was most likely available to me, but was not given to me, and through personal experience. And so, going a little bit further now, to the greater part, um, is one night I did one more episode, and I woke up so sick. And I'm so grateful that I woke up feeling sick. And finally being tired of being tired and tired of fucking sitting in my own bullshit. And I made up my mind. So I went and I did 60 days. I experienced a program. I left that program after 60 days. I did a few crisis centers, and I ended up with COVID in one of them, was kicked out of two of them. Ridiculous. Like I said, nonprofit organizations that benefit off of individuals' presence is so unfortunate. But if I could have a lawsuit for every experience that was illegal, I'd be well off. And I hope that one day I can actually follow through with that in some way. And if it's not, if I'm not able to accomplish that, I hope to accomplish bringing a program, a solution to individuals' help. That is my ultimate goal, is to become a program that actually does what it says and means what it does. And so after that 60 days, they didn't allow me to complete school. I had already enrolled in school. I was already going to school. And they didn't allow me to continue going to school. So I left their program. And that's what I mean by you get to a certain point in a program and the whole purpose is to be successful and succeed and get out of that program, not to stay in that program, not to allow them to just milk the money from you or anybody else. But they didn't, so I left. I went back to the street for about 3 more weeks, and I was already over it. I finally got, grace of God, I was welcomed into a shelter, and the shelter was really great, and I recommend the shelter today. And they took me in as I was. Obviously, there was a few stipulations that couldn't be, and they weren't, so I was welcomed. And from that shelter, they offered me a little longer of a stay if I attended a program. So I attended the program willingly. The first day I walked into that shelter, there were children in there, so the night prior was the last night that I had ever used, and knowing that I was going to be able to go into the shelter, I did not use going in. And so I stayed sober, and I've been sober ever since. And so that's just a bit of my journey. It's a little bit of my trauma. These are things that I have worked on over time. I work on things every day. I pray every day. I have accomplished so much in such a short period of time. And I've become more silent. I've become more, just more mature in my life and my decisions. But I'm still goofy. I'm still funny. I still love to live. I do karaoke. And I believe that sobriety doesn't have to be so robotic. I'm not going to say I'm against meetings. They're not for me. One day I hope to stand and speak and do public speaking based on my personal experience and my journey, everything that I've been able to overcome. And so with that being said, I'm going to make this video end. And like I said, I'm in college now. I work at a barber shop. I do outreach, and I work on campus. And I'm 318 days sober. So if anybody says it's not possible, they're lying, because I'm walking, living proof, breathing proof that trauma could hit like a damn truck train, and you can eventually one day just dust all that rubbish off and shine bright like a diamond. So anyway, peace out. God bless. Stay prayed up. It's your girl Ro. Bye.